Well, more than half of the gas exported from Australia is royalty-free, according to research from think tank the Australia Institute. Their report finds that more than $13 billion in revenue could have been raised over the past 4 years if royalties had been charged on some of Australia's major gas exports. Mark Ogge is the author of the report and joins me now. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, Kath.
Now, your research has found that more than half of the gas that Australia has exported has attracted no revenue in the form of royalties. Can you take us through how you arrived at these numbers and the magnitude that we're missing out on?
Yeah, sure. So most of the gas exported from Australia is fed by offshore gas fields, and they're in Commonwealth waters. So the Commonwealth government has jurisdiction over those gas fields and can charge royalties over them. But with the exception of a few gas fields off the North West Shelf in Western Australia, the Commonwealth government has just failed to collect royalties for that gas, so it's effectively being given away for free.
So the Commonwealth, so we're just extrapolating a bit more on how royalties work. You've got the federal government, they're not imposing any royalties on the gas extracted, apart from those ones in the North West Shelf. But the states do they not?
Yeah, so Queensland imposes royalty on coal seam gas that's exported from Queensland, and there's a small amount of onshore gas in Western Australia that royalties is collected on, but most gas exported from Australia is in Commonwealth waters, and royalties are the payment that big multinational oil and gas companies are meant to make to the Australian community, collected by the Australian government on our behalf. And if the Australian government doesn't impose royalties, it's essentially giving the gas away for free. And this gas is worth tens of billions of dollars. The multinational oil and gas companies selling it are making vast windfall profits every year, and the Australian community is essentially giving it away. Okay,
so the Commonwealth might come back and say, whilst that's the situation with royalties, they do charge the PRRT, the Petroleum Resources Rent Tax.
Well, the Petroleum Resources Rent Tax has been a spectacular failure. Most of these big multinational oil and gas companies don't pay it at all, and a lot of them don't expect to pay it ever. And even if they did, even if the tax did work, which it doesn't, they should pay royalties as well, because the royalties are a payment for the raw materials, which is the gas. And like every other business in Australia, the oil and gas industry should pay for its raw materials, its inputs, and pay tax. It's not an either-or situation.
With respect to the PRRT, I mean, if there were changes to it, and there has been some talk around that happening, and there was some last year with the government's plan to limit deductions to 90% of that accessible income, would that go some way to bringing the revenue that we deserve back to this country?
The government's proposed changes to the PRRT are woefully inadequate. When you look at the government's projected revenue, even with those changes, the taking from the PRRT barely increases at all. So most of these companies will just continue not paying it.
Okay. What has the government had to say about royalties with the announcement of its future gas policy?
Well, that's the extraordinary thing. The Australian government writes this enormous future gas policy and doesn't mention at all, so it's meant to be a strategy about the management of Australia's gas, and doesn't even make mention of whether the Australian community should get a fair return or a better return for our resources, which are basically being given away to big foreign-owned oil and gas companies at the moment. It's extraordinary they didn't even consider this.
Okay, so what arrangements would you like to see around royalties?
Royalties should simply be charged on all gas that's produced in Australia, and including the 56% of gas that royalties aren't levied on at the moment. And if we just did it at the average rate of other royalties in Australia, on gas and other royalties in Australia, over the past 4 years, we would have raised an additional $13 billion.
Do you have any concerns around sovereign risk when you start changing royalties and taxes around the investment that it might bring to the industry?
Absolutely not. The industry always cries wolf over sovereign risk. It's just a catchphrase. Other countries like Norway and Qatar and other big oil and gas exporters, the gas industry, well, in the case of Norway, for instance, the gas industry tried that on. They said, if you increase taxes, we'll leave. And of course, they didn't, because the oil and gas is in Norway, as it is in Australia. And the Norwegian government levied very heavy taxes on the oil and gas industry, and Norwegians are rich as a result. Whereas in Australia, our government has just basically backed down and does whatever the gas industry tells them to do.
Yeah, those Norway taxing rates on its oil and gas, I think, are at 78%. That was back in '96, quite vastly different. The Australia's Great Gas giveaway makes for interesting reading. Mark Ogge, thank you.
Pleasure, Kath.
Now, the ABC is seeking a response from the gas industry on this report, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we receive it.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to keep up to date with all our latest research and work, sign up to our newsletter. Delivered every fortnight, it includes behind-the-scenes updates from Richard Dennis, an exclusive cartoon from Judy Horacek, details for our upcoming events and webinars, as well as explainers, graphs, and not to mention the latest cutting-edge research and analysis from the team here on the key issues that are facing Australia. Click the button on your screen to check it out.